What I'm doing is reading source code of Express session. It's open source, MIT licensed. Copyright from 2010, Shancha Incorporation, and 2011, TG Holloway Chuck. Douglas Christopher Wilson. Douglas Christopher Wilson might be the third author of the software. It's MIT licensed. It basically means if we keep respecting the license of this software, we can do nearly everything we want to read, to modify, and to pass the software to others. It's free software. At the beginning, it required some packages. Cookie, CRC, debug, deprecate, pass URL, and UID. UID is supposed to give Unicode. To give UUID, it's used for session ID. Then the exports. Export means what this package is going to export for others to use as a public interface. The export is session. Session is a function. Yes, session is a function. Then it exports a few other things to public. Export store, cookie, session, and memory store. Because export already been assigned to be session, so it means all the other exports are becoming the attribute of session. Session is a function. The function taking options. Option of cookie, gen ID is supposed to be the way to generate the session ID, and proxy, receive, loading, save uninitialized secret. Option store supposed to be the backend storage for session date, and it return a function. Session return a function. It's a middleware for express.js framework. So let's see what session is doing. This is option. It must be something even empty. If we didn't give it an option, we have option have name, star, cookie, proxy, all about those settings. And this is a way to generate the ID. According the option is supposed to do some settings, and then what the session function does is it returns a function. The function is a middleware. It gets the request, response, and the next is function. This is standard Express or Connect middleware function. Request is what user requests the web server to serve them. Response is the server's response. It has been wrapped as an object, request object, response object. Then let's see what the middleware does for session things. If it has session, it will return by calling return next. Those code is what I'm debugging. I use during debugging. I print out some information for checking. If star ready, we can know this is checking if the session star is ready. Then it will send star to session star, and it will give request object an attribute of session. Session is an object. It's being saved in the request object. So we can access session from request.session. Here, onHead is a package. It means something about the HTTP headers. Supposed to do things about the header. res_end is a function. The function is supposed to do things about when res should be sent back to user. This sets the response object end attribute. There we can see right end, right top. If should destroy, then the session star will destroy session with the session ID, with the specific session ID. Should save, then the session will be saved. This uses star's functionality, get the session with the ID. Okay, there are 600 lines of code. This piece of software deserves a little bit more reading. I put the link here for later reference. Okay, let's have some background information. What are sessions? How do they work? When we come across the term cookies and sessions, cookies in network or browser means small pieces of data that they store some information in a key-value pair on the browser. Some has confusion regarding sessions. In session, sometimes we store data in a cookie on the user's browser. For example, user login using username and password. In such a case, the data will be posted to server, which is supposed to check and log user in if authenticated. However, during the entire process, the server also generates a session ID, which will be stored in a cookie on user's browser. Now, the server also stores the session ID in its file system or data store, or some other kind of backend storage. But based on just the session ID, how would it be able to know the username during the subsequent visits of the site? Yes, it is possible if the user already logged in and if the server implemented a way to keep session with the user. But HTTP is stateless. In order to associate a request to any other request, we need a way to keep knowledge of user information between HTTP requests. Cookie or URL parameters, for example, are both suitable ways to transport data between two or more requests. However, for most time, we don't want that data to be readable or editable on client side for security reasons. The solution is to store that data server side, give it an ID, and let the client only know that ID, and pass back the ID every time they submit HTTP request. Session implemented this way, or you can use the client as a convenient remote storage, but you encrypt the data and keep the secret server side. Of course, there are other aspects to consider, like you don't want people to hijack other session. You want session to not last forever, but to expire, and so on. The user ID could be username or other unique ID in your user database, can be stored in the session date server side. After successful identification, then for every HTTP request you get from the client, the session ID given by client will point the server to the correct session date stored by the server that contain the authenticated user ID. That way, the server will know that user is who is the server talking to during the session. This is something about the session. To get more background information and go deeper, I put some reference here, and the code can be found at GitHub repository. You can search Stack Overflow HTTP session cookie for more detailed information about these things. Okay, it's all. Thanks for watching.